Hey there, true crime besties. Welcome back to the Stay at Home Detectives podcast. I'm Jen.
And I'm Sam.
Today we're covering the case of Daisy Mae Heath. So let's dive right in. Human remains found in November 2008 in a remote area of the Yakama Reservation have been identified as those of a Yakama woman missing since late summer 1987. Yakama County Coroner Jim Curtis said Wednesday the remains found on November 26, 2008, west of White Swan, have been confirmed by DNA analysis to be 29-year-old Daisy Mae Heath, who grew up in White Swan as Daisy Tallman. She was living there when she disappeared. She was reported missing on October 29, 1987. Testing was completed by Othram Laboratories, a private DNA laboratory in Texas known for identifying people whose remains have been unidentified for decades. Funding for the DNA testing was provided by the Washington State Attorney General's office, Curtis said in a news release. I'm hopeful that this may help with the healing process for family and friends, he said.
Though Heath's cause and manner of death will remain undetermined until further information is available, Curtis said, the FBI has described her disappearance as a suspected homicide. The FBI has jurisdiction to investigate all serious crimes involving Native Americans on tribal lands. Heath's backpack, keys, and a turquoise ring were also found in the area west of White Swan where her remains were discovered. The land is closed to non-tribal citizens unless they have permission to be there. Road access is monitored when a guardhouse with a gate is staffed. In the 1980s and 1990s, at least 14 Native American women were murdered in cases that remain unsolved or died under mysterious circumstances on the 1.3 million acre Yakama Reservation spanning Yakima and Klickitat counties. Some were found within or near closed portions of the reservation and died of strangulation or hypothermia.
Heath was one of at least 2 Native American women who disappeared in that time. Karen Johnlee Wallahy, who was last seen in Hera on November 7, 1987, is still missing. She was also 29 years old. It wasn't unusual for Heath to be gone for extended periods of time. She would spend weeks in remote country hunting, fishing, and gathering traditional foods. She also traveled between White Swan on the Yakama Reservation and the Warm Springs Reservation in Oregon, where the family had more relatives and friends. She was reported missing to Yakama Nation Tribal police when relatives hadn't seen or heard from her for about 2 months.
Heath was born on January 10, 1958, and grew up as Daisy Mae Tallman, which has her mother's married name, but changed her last name to her father's name shortly before she went missing. She was the youngest of 6 sisters and raised by maternal grandparents Elias and Lily Whitefoot, along with extended family on a ranch in Medicine Valley near the foothills of the Cascades.
She was known for her prowess in basketball and softball and her dedication to family, especially her nieces and nephews, some of whom she helped raise. Though she was athletic and able to survive on her own in the region's rugged backcountry, Heath was struggling with 2 profound losses when she disappeared: the deaths in 1986 of her infant daughter and the beloved grandmother who raised her and her sisters.
Heath was living with her sister Patricia Whitefoot and in a very vulnerable state when she disappeared. Whitefoot said during a March 2021 gathering of Yakama and Warm Springs sisters and close relatives of Heath and her cousin Agnes Whitefoot Laura. They remembered Heath and Laura, who was murdered in Wapato in April 1994.
Relatives shared stories as they spoke of their missing and murdered loved ones. They wanted to ensure that their loved ones are remembered as people, not just statistics or case numbers, and let others know they will always be missed. I want to get the story of my sister out there, other than the fact that she is missing, Whitefoot said during the gathering. She was a good person. She was looked to in a very positive light by her sisters and family members and nieces and nephews she helped raise.
So, kind of going off of her case is they don't know what happened to her. They'll probably never know what happened to her. When I was looking into the case, it almost kind of seems like maybe it could have been a suicide, but they're not thinking it's a suicide because of the other 14 Native American women that were found dead from strangulation or hypothermia, which doesn't make any sense. So they think that somebody was murdering all of these Native American women, which is really sad and scary to think about. Like, and you know, back in the 80s, I mean, we were just born in 1987 when she had went missing. So I mean, she was young when she went missing too. So it makes you think, like, obviously she was dealing with a lot of grief, and, you know, losing her infant daughter was probably a very intense process that she was going through. But I don't know, like, reading about it and like hearing her case really makes me think that she was murdered. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I definitely would say I think the same. And really because of the backstory and some of the information within the case with the other women during the same time, they were around the same age and were killed, like you said, either by strangulation or hypothermia, which is a very strange coincidence for multiple women and Native American women at that. So it's hard to believe that it was a suicide. Nothing's real. I mean, there are, I guess, facts based on what she was going through, like you mentioned, with losing her baby and just going through pretty extensive grief. But even her family had said
it was out of character for her. I mean, it was
right.
It was usual for her to like go hunting, go fishing, and, you know, come back. But, you know, and then they talk about how the land was secure, but I mean, is the land really secure? Like, I mean,
right. And, you know, I don't know if you're familiar, if any of our listeners now are familiar with some of the other cases surrounding Native American women and getting murdered or disappearing. I recently, I'd say within the last year, watched a documentary, which we might cover that as well, to go in tangent with this case. But I know that there were more cases in other areas throughout the United States where women, Native American women, were going missing, were being murdered. And this was within the past, I'd say 15, 20 years. So this is obviously a much older case, but maybe that's kind of where
in the beginning,
this
like
started.
in the beginning of where it started. Yeah, I would like to cover more in this area, especially with it coming to the Native American women, because it's not something that you really ever hear about in the media. And I'm happy that I was able to come across this case, and it sparked my interest because I'd like to maybe bring justice to other Native American women that are still probably getting murdered to this day. I mean, and that's probably where it started. I mean, I don't know. Let us know what you guys think in the comments, or if you've heard of this case, or if you know any of, you know, a more recent case with any of the Native American women that might be tied into Daisy Mae's.
Yeah, definitely let us know. Or if there's any additional cases you'd like us to cover, we provide our contact information in the show notes. So feel free to shoot us an email and let us know some additional cases maybe you're familiar with that you'd like us to cover, especially within this realm as far as bringing justice to these poor women who are just being murdered or going missing and disappearing. But there's so much more, I believe, to this case, and it's unfortunate because it's such an old case and it's from the 80s. And I mean, I'm so glad that they did find her remains.
Me too. To give her family closure, but it still doesn't give her family closure because
they don't know what happened to her. They don't know what happened to her. So it's unfortunate. Was there information about the autopsy report?
I didn't see anything.
If we come across any additional information on this case or updates or like potential autopsy report where we can get some information on whether they can actually confirm or deny whether it was a murder or suicide or whatever, we'll definitely do a follow-up. We'll do a part 2 and let you all know. But let us know what you think of this particular case. Let us know if you have any additional cases you'd like us to cover, and we will catch you next time. Bye.